May 5th, 1945, Flossenburg concentration camp, Bavaria, Germany. Friedrich Weber, 28 years old, prisoner wearing a pink triangle, lies on his wooden bunk in Block 13. He weighs 92 pounds. Before the war, he weighed 167 pounds. He lost 75 pounds in 3 years. But he's alive. Many are not. Of the 187 men wearing the pink triangle who arrived at Flossenburg between 1942 and 1945, only 32 are still alive. Friedrich is one of the 32. He survived. But at what cost? This morning, something different is happening. The SS guards have disappeared. They left during the night. The camp is empty of Nazis. But the prisoners remain too weak to leave, too terrified to believe it's real. Is this a trap? Will the guards return and shoot anyone who tries to escape? Friedrich stays on his bunk, listening. Then he hears something. Motors, vehicles approaching. Are the guards coming back? No, the sound is different. These aren't German trucks. These are American vehicles. Friedrich hears voices in English. The Americans, the liberators. They've arrived. Friedrich tries to stand. His legs tremble. He can barely stay upright, but he has to see. He has to know if this is real. He drags himself to the barracks door and sees something he's never seen before. American soldiers, dozens of them, in clean uniforms with weapons, with food, with water, walking through the camp, liberating the prisoners. The American soldiers look around with horror. They heard about the camps, but seeing is different. The emaciated bodies, the living skeletons, the smell of death, the mountains of corpses, hell on earth. A young American soldier, Corporal James Mitchell, 22 years old from Ohio, approaches Block 13. He sees Friedrich standing in the doorway. "My God," Mitchell whispers. "You're alive?" Friedrich doesn't understand English, but he understands the tone. Shock, horror, compassion. Mitchell approaches slowly as you would approach an injured animal. "It's going to be okay," he says softly. "You're safe now. We're here. You're free." Friedrich looks at the soldier. Young, healthy, clean, well-fed, representing everything Friedrich is not, representing freedom. Mitchell notices the pink triangle on Friedrich's uniform. He stops. The pink triangle. Mitchell knows what that means. Homosexual. Mitchell himself he can't even think the word. But he knows. He's always known. He's hidden it his whole life, in Ohio, in the army, everywhere. Because in America, in 1945, being homosexual is a crime, a disease, a shame. But here, in this camp, he sees something he's never seen. A man punished to death for being what Mitchell is. A man who wore his crime openly on his uniform for all to see. A man who couldn't hide. And Mitchell realizes, that could have been me if I'd been born in Germany. If I'd been discovered, that would be me. That living skeleton, that survivor of hell. Mitchell extends his hand to Friedrich. "I'm going to help you," he says. Friedrich takes the hand, and for the first time in 3 years, he touches a human hand that isn't trying to hurt him, a hand that offers help. But then something strange happens. Friedrich doesn't feel relieved. He feels confused because he knows what the pink triangle means. He knows what people think of men like him. Even the liberators. The Americans saved them from the Nazis. But does that mean they accept them? Does that mean they see them as human? Or do they just see victims to save and then forget? Friedrich doesn't know, but he's about to find out. This story isn't like other liberation stories because for the men wearing the pink triangle, liberation wasn't the end of their suffering. It was just the beginning of a new form of oppression. A more subtle oppression, but just as real. This is the story of Block 13 at Flossenburg, the story of the 32 survivors wearing the pink triangle, the story of what happened when the degenerates were liberated, and the story of why their liberation was never truly complete. If this story has already moved you in these first few minutes, please hit that subscribe button, smash that like button, and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any of our powerful true stories. Comment below and tell us where you're watching from. Your support helps us share these forgotten histories that need to be told. Let's go back to 1942, 3 years before liberation. Friedrich Weber is 25 years old. He lives in Berlin, works as an accountant at a bank. He's careful, discreet, because in 1942 in Nazi Germany, being homosexual is a crime. Paragraph 175 of the German Penal Code criminalizes homosexual acts between men. The penalty, prison, or worse. Friedrich has a secret life. He frequents underground bars, meets other men in secret, lives in constant fear, but he survives until he doesn't. June 1942. Friedrich is betrayed. A man he met, someone he trusted, turns out to be a Gestapo informant. The Nazis arrest Friedrich at his home early in the morning. Friedrich Weber, you're under arrest for violation of paragraph 175, homosexual acts. Friedrich begs, cries. It makes no difference. They take him away. First, prison, interrogation, psychological torture. Name others. Who else is like you? Give us names. Friedrich refuses, so they beat him. After 3 months in prison, the verdict, concentration camp. You are a degenerate, a corruption of the Aryan race. You will be re-educated or eliminated. September 1942. Friedrich arrives at Flossenburg. He now wears a striped uniform, and on his chest, a pink triangle. The pink triangle identifies homosexual prisoners. Different from the red triangle for political prisoners, green triangle for criminals, purple triangle for Jehovah's Witnesses, yellow triangle for Jews, black triangle for asocials. The pink triangle marks sexual degeneracy, and in the brutal hierarchy of the camp, men with the pink triangle are at the very bottom. Even other prisoners despise them. The Nazis put them in the worst work details. The kapos, prisoner supervisors, beat them harder. They're given less food. They're denied medical care. They're forced to sleep near the latrines. They're used for medical experiments. They're chemically castrated. They're tortured to cure their homosexuality. Friedrich quickly discovers that in this death camp, the mortality rate for homosexual prisoners is the highest of all groups. About 65% die, compared to 41% for political prisoners. They die of starvation, disease, beatings, forced labor, suicide. They die because everyone, Nazis, capos, other prisoners, considers them less than human. Friedrich survives the first months through pure will. He's assigned to a stone quarry. Exhausting work, 14 hours a day breaking rocks. Many men with the pink triangle die in the quarry. They fall from exhaustion or intentionally throw themselves off cliffs. Suicide. Friedrich thinks about suicide every day, but something keeps him alive. Not hope, not really, just stubbornness. The refusal to let the Nazis win. He meets other men with the pink triangle. Klaus, 32 years old, former teacher from Berlin. Otto, 29 years old, artist from Munich. Ernst, 24 years old, student from Hamburg. They form an informal group. No alliance. They share food when they can, protect each other. We must survive, Klaus says. Not for us, but to bear witness. The world must know what happened to us. We can't let the Nazis erase our existence. But surviving is almost impossible. January 1943. Ernst dies of typhus. He's 24 years old. March 1943. Otto is beaten to death by a capo. He's 30 years old. July 1943. Klaus is selected for medical experiments. He never returns. He was 33 years old. Friedrich mourns their deaths in silence, but he continues. 1944 arrives. The war turns against Germany. But in the camp, nothing changes. The Nazis become more brutal, more desperate. Executions increase. Friedrich sees men hanged, shot, gassed. He sees bodies piled like firewood. He constantly smells death. He lives in hell. Early 1945. Rumors begin. The Allies are approaching. The Americans, the Russians. Liberation might come. But many pink triangle prisoners don't live long enough to see it. Of the 187 men with the pink triangle at Flossenburg, only 32 survive until liberation. Friedrich is one of the 32. He survived 3 years of hell, but he's no longer the same person. He weighs 92 pounds. His ribs are visible. His eyes are sunken. He's been beaten, starved, tortured, dehumanized. He's seen his friends die. He's lost his faith in humanity. But he's alive. And on May 5th, 1945, the Americans arrive. Friedrich thinks it's over. The hell is finished. But he's wrong, because for the men with the pink triangle, a new type of hell begins. A hell of silence, of forgetting, of continued oppression, because the Americans liberated them from the camp, but not from their crime. May 5th, 1945. American soldiers enter Flossenburg. Corporal Mitchell and his unit from the 90th Infantry Division are among the first. They received briefings about the concentration camps, but nothing prepares them for the reality. "My God," Mitchell murmurs, looking around. "It's worse than anything I imagined. Living skeletons walking, Mountains of corpses, the unbearable smell. The soldiers start vomiting. Some cry, but they have a mission: help the survivors. Mitchell heads toward Block 13. Inside, he finds Friedrich and other men with the pink triangle, all barely alive. "You're safe now," Mitchell says through an interpreter, an American soldier of German descent. Friedrich looks at Mitchell with empty eyes. "Safe? What does that mean?" Mitchell notices the pink triangles. He asks the interpreter what the pink triangle means. The interpreter hesitates. "They're homosexuals, Corporal." Mitchell stands frozen. Oh, there's an uncomfortable silence. Mitchell knows he should feel compassion. These are victims, Holocaust survivors. But part of him, the part conditioned by 1945 American society, feels uncomfortable because in America, homosexuals are criminalized too. Not in concentration camps, but imprisoned, treated in asylums, subjected to conversion therapy. The American Army itself has a strict policy. Homosexuals aren't allowed to serve. If they're discovered, they're dishonorably discharged, imprisoned, destroyed. Mitchell himself lives in constant terror of being discovered, and now he stands before men who were persecuted for the same thing he hides. It's complicated, but Mitchell pushes away his own fears. These men need help, regardless of what they are. "We have food, water, medical care. We're going to help you." Friedrich and the others are taken to the camp infirmary that the Americans quickly established. Military doctors examine them. "This guy weighs less than 100 pounds, a doctor says. "How is he still alive?" "Pure will," a nurse responds. The refeeding process begins. Slowly, carefully. Too much food too fast can kill a starving body. Friedrich receives broth, soft bread, water. It's the best food he's had in 3 years. He cries while eating. The following days are blurry. The Americans document the camp, take photos, interrogate survivors. They want testimonies, evidence of Nazi crimes. Officers come to interview survivors. "Tell us what happened here." Political prisoners speak. Jews speak. Jehovah's Witnesses speak. But the men with the pink triangle hesitate because they realize we're not like the other survivors. The others were persecuted for things beyond their control: their religion, their race, their political beliefs. We were persecuted for who we are, for whom we love. And that thing is still a crime. Not just in Nazi Germany, but in America too, in France, in England, everywhere. The Nazis put us in camps, but the Allies put us in prison too. Friedrich is interviewed by an American officer, Captain Robert Harrison. "Mr. Weber, tell me about your experience in the camp." Friedrich, through the interpreter, begins to speak. He talks about forced labor, starvation, beatings, but he doesn't mention why he was there. He doesn't mention paragraph 175. He doesn't mention the pink triangle. Harrison notices. "You wore a pink triangle. You were here for homosexuality." Friedrich nods slowly. Harrison writes something in his notes. "I see. Well, you're a survivor now. You'll be taken care of." But there's something in Harrison's tone, something distant. Friedrich feels it. We're different, even to our liberators. Weeks pass. Camp survivors begin to be sorted. Political prisoners receive support. Jews receive international attention. Other groups are documented. But the men with the pink triangle, they're helped medically, fed, cared for. But there's a silence around them. Nobody talks about their specific persecution. Nobody acknowledges that their suffering was unique. They're just there, surviving, but not celebrated. Victims, but not recognized. And slowly, Friedrich realizes something terrible. We've been liberated from the camp, but we haven't been liberated from our crime. In Germany, paragraph 175 remains in effect after the war under the Allied government. Men convicted under paragraph 175 aren't automatically released. Many are transferred from concentration camps to regular prisons to finish serving their sentence. Friedrich discovers this when an American officer comes to see him in June. "Mr. Weber, we've reviewed your file. You were convicted under paragraph 175 in 1942. According to German law, which remains in effect, your sentence isn't finished. You must be transferred to a civilian prison to complete your sentence." Friedrich can't believe what he's hearing. I just survived 3 years in a concentration camp, and you're going to put me in prison?" "It's not our decision. It's German law. But you're the liberators. You can change the law." "We can't change every law. And frankly, Mr. Weber, paragraph 175 is similar to laws in our own countries. Homosexuality is illegal in America too, in England, in France. We can't say it's unjust in Germany if we have the same laws at home. Friedrich is paralyzed. It's a nightmare. He survived Nazi hell only to discover that his liberators approve of his persecution. Mitchell, who heard this conversation, is torn. Part of him knows it's unfair. Friedrich is a victim. He suffered horribly for something he can't control. But another part of Mitchell, the part that's been conditioned all his life, thinks, but homosexuality is a crime. It's immoral. It's a disease. Mitchell himself is homosexual. He knows it. But he was raised to believe it's wrong, shameful, something to be corrected. Seeing Friedrich, seeing what happens when homosexuality is discovered, terrifies Mitchell. That could be me. If someone finds out, if someone betrays me, I could be destroyed too. Mitchell approaches Friedrich that evening. "I'm sorry for what's happening to you," he says softly. Friedrich looks at him with exhausted eyes. "Are you really?" "Yes, I think it's unfair. But you won't do anything to stop it." Mitchell is silent because Friedrich is right. Mitchell won't do anything. He can't, because if he defends Friedrich too strongly, people might suspect. They might wonder, why does he care so much? And Mitchell can't risk that, so he stays silent. And Friedrich sees that silence for what it is, cowardice. But Mitchell isn't alone in his cowardice. Everyone is silent. The Americans, the British, the French. They liberated the camps, but they didn't liberate the homosexuals. July 1945, 2 months after liberation. Friedrich is transferred to a civilian prison in Nuremberg, not a concentration camp, just a regular prison. But after surviving Flossenburg, even a regular prison seems strange. He has a bed, regular food, no torture, but he's still a prisoner, still punished for who he is. He shares a cell with another man convicted under paragraph 175. Martin, 31 years old, arrested in 1943, spent 2 years in a camp, now in prison. "Welcome to liberation," Martin says bitterly. "I don't understand," Friedrich says. "The war is over. The Nazis are gone. Why are we still being punished?" "Because our crime wasn't a Nazi crime. It was a German crime, a universal crime. The Nazis didn't persecute us because they were Nazis. They persecuted us because we're homosexuals, and being homosexual is illegal everywhere. But we suffered. We were in the camps. And nobody cares because in their minds, we deserved our suffering. We broke the law. We're immoral. We're sick. They don't see us as victims. They see us as criminals who were punished." Friedrich realizes Martin is right. In the emerging narratives of the Holocaust, pink triangle prisoners are ignored. Jews are recognized. Political prisoners are recognized. Jehovah's Witnesses are recognized. But homosexuals? Silence. In history books, in testimonies, in commemorations, homosexuals are forgotten because acknowledging their suffering would mean acknowledging they were unjustly persecuted. And nobody wants to do that because it would mean questioning their own laws against homosexuality. September 1945. Friedrich is released from prison after serving his complete sentence. He walks out into post-war Germany. Everything is in ruins. Cities are destroyed. The economy has collapsed. But for Friedrich, the greatest challenge isn't physical destruction, it's psychological destruction. He has a criminal record for homosexuality. That means he can't get certain jobs, can't live in certain places. He's marked for life. He returns to Berlin, tries to rebuild his life. But it's almost impossible. He can't talk about what happened to him. Not to his family, not to potential employers, not to anyone. Because if they discover he was in a camp for homosexuality, they won't sympathize. They'll judge. They'll think he deserved it. Friedrich finds work as a factory worker. Humble work. Anonymous. He lives alone, isolated, silent. He has nightmares every night. He relives the camp, the beatings, friends dying. But he can't seek help. There's no support for pink triangle survivors. No support groups. No official recognition. No reparations. Other Holocaust survivors progressively receive recognition, commemorations, monuments, financial reparations, but not homosexuals because they were criminals, not innocent victims. 1950 arrives. 5 years after liberation. Friedrich is now 33 years old. He looks 50. The camp aged him, broke him. He tries to find other pink triangle survivors. He wants to talk, share, heal together. But it's difficult. Many are dead, many are hiding, many are ashamed. He finally finds Martin, the one who shared his prison cell. They meet in a quiet cafe in Berlin. How are you? Friedrich asks. Surviving, Martin says. Barely. And you? The same. They're silent for a moment. Then Martin says, have you noticed? Nobody talks about us. They talk about the Holocaust, the 6 million Jews, the political prisoners, the others, but not us. It's as if we don't exist. Maybe they want us not to exist, Friedrich says. Maybe acknowledging what happened to us would mean acknowledging we're human, and they don't want to do that. What do we do then? We survive, we bear witness, and we wait. Maybe one day the world will be ready to hear our story, but that day is far away. 1960, 1970, 1980. Decades pass. Germany rebuilds, Europe rebuilds, the world moves forward. The Holocaust becomes a major subject of study, commemoration. Never again. But homosexuals in the Holocaust? Always forgotten. Paragraph 175 remains in effect in West Germany until 1969. That means for 24 years after the liberation of the camps, homosexuals continued to be criminalized under the same Nazi law. Men convicted under paragraph 175 aren't exonerated. Their criminal records remain. They receive no reparations, no recognition, no apologies. Friedrich lives until 1987. He's 70 years old when he dies. He survived the camp, survived prison, survived decades of shame and silence. But he never saw justice, never saw recognition. He died as he lived after liberation, in silence. On his tombstone, nothing is said about the Pink Triangle, nothing about Flossenburg, just his name, his dates, as if he were nothing, as if nothing happened. Let's return to Mitchell, the corporal who found Friedrich at Flossenburg. What happened to him after the war? Mitchell returns home to Ohio in 1946. He's welcomed as a hero, the liberator, the veteran. People thank him for his service. But Mitchell carries a secret. He's homosexual. And seeing the men with the pink triangle, seeing what happened to them, traumatized him because he realizes that could be me in a different world, in a different place. That would be me. Mitchell tries to live a normal life. He marries a kind woman named Susan. They have 2 children. Mitchell plays the role of the perfect heterosexual man. But inside, he's torn. He thinks about Friedrich, about the pink triangle men. He thinks about what he saw, what he didn't do. He liberated them from the camp, but he didn't defend them from injustice. He said nothing when Friedrich was sent to prison. He did nothing when the pink triangle men were forgotten. He stayed silent out of fear, out of cowardice, out of self-preservation. That silence haunts him for the rest of his life. 1969, 23 years after the war. Mitchell, now 46 years old, hears about the Stonewall riots in New York, homosexuals rebelling against police, demanding their rights. Mitchell watches the news with fascination and terror. Fascination because they're fighting, they're refusing to be silent. Terror because what if someone discovers I'm homosexual? Mitchell has lived a double life for 46 years. Married, father, veteran, but in secret he meets other men in the shadows, in shame. He lives in constant terror of being discovered. 1974. Mitchell divorces Susan. She knows, she's always known. I want you to be happy, she says, even if it's not with me. Mitchell cries with gratitude, relief, shame. He moves to California, San Francisco. There, he finds a community, other gay men living openly. For the first time in his life, Mitchell feels free, not completely but closer than he's ever been. He joins gay rights advocacy groups. He participates in demonstrations, pride marches. He tries to be the person he wasn't for Friedrich. He tries to fight for the rights he didn't defend in 1945, 1985, 40 years after the liberation of Flossenburg. Mitchell, now 62 years old, attends a Holocaust commemoration in San Francisco. He listens to speeches about the 6 million Jews, about the other victims, but nobody mentions homosexuals. Nobody mentions the pink triangle. Mitchell stands up, interrupts. Excuse me, I was there. I liberated Flossenburg in 1945, and I have to tell you something nobody's saying. There were men there wearing pink triangles. Homosexuals. They suffered horribly. They were tortured, killed, treated as less than human. And after liberation, they were sent to prison to finish serving their sentence because their crime wasn't just a Nazi crime, it was a universal crime. And we, the liberators, didn't defend them. We liberated them from the camp, but not from oppression. And for 40 years, nobody talks about them. It's time to speak. The audience is silent. Some are shocked, some uncomfortable, some nod. After the event, several people approach Mitchell. "Thank you for speaking," a young man says. "My uncle was in a camp, Pink Triangle. He never talked about it. He died in silence." Mitchell feels tears rising. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry we forgot you." Mitchell learns that Friedrich died. He never saw Friedrich again after 1945, but he thought about him for 42 years. Mitchell writes a letter, not to Friedrich, he's dead, but to the world. In 1945, I liberated Flossenburg concentration camp. I saw men wearing pink triangles, homosexuals. I saw them suffer. I saw them die. And after liberation, I saw them sent to prison. And I did nothing. I stayed silent because I was afraid, because I was homosexual too, and I knew that if I spoke too loudly, I might be discovered. I chose my safety over their justice, and I've lived with that shame for 42 years. Now I'm breaking my silence. Homosexuals were victims of the Holocaust. They deserve to be recognized, commemorated, honored, and all of us owe them an apology for forgetting them, for continuing their oppression, for the silence. I'm sorry. James Mitchell, Corporal, 90th Infantry Division, U.S. Army. This letter is published in a gay newspaper, then picked up by other publications. Slowly, the story of the pink triangles begins to be told. 1990. The first monument commemorating homosexual victims of the Holocaust is erected in Amsterdam. 1995. Germany officially apologizes to homosexual victims of the Holocaust. 2002. Paragraph 1. 75 is finally completely abolished and convictions are overturned. 2008. A monument for homosexual victims is erected in Berlin. Mitchell lives long enough to see these monuments. He dies in 2010 at 87 years old. At his funeral, he wears a pink triangle pin in memory of Friedrich, in memory of all those he didn't defend, and in recognition of his own struggle. 2025. 80 years after the liberation of Flossenburg, there are no more living survivors wearing the pink triangle. Friedrich died in 1987. Martin died in 1992. The others died in the following decades. All are gone. But their story remains. At the Flossenburg Memorial Museum, there's now an exhibition about pink triangle prisoners. Photos, testimonies, objects, a giant pink triangle on the wall, and a plaque that says, "In memory of men persecuted and murdered for their homosexuality." About 100,000 men were arrested under paragraph 175 during the Nazi era. Between 5,000 and 15,000 were sent to concentration camps. About 65% died. After liberation, many were sent to prison to finish their sentence. Paragraph 175 remained in effect until 1969. Victims didn't receive reparations until 2002. Their suffering was forgotten for decades. We remember now. School groups visit the exhibition. Students look at photos, read stories. "I didn't know," a student says. "I didn't know homosexuals were in the camps too." Many people don't know, the guide says, because their story was suppressed for so long. But it's important to remember because their persecution didn't end with liberation. It continued under the Allies, under democracies, because homophobia wasn't just Nazi, it was universal. And that's a lesson we must learn. In another place, an LGBTQ+ community center in Berlin, there's a program for young people teaching LGBTQ+ history, including the Holocaust. A former activist, now in his 80s, speaks. "I grew up in the 1950s when being homosexual was still a crime. I lived in fear, in secret, in shame. But I was lucky. I wasn't sent to a camp. I wasn't imprisoned. But others were. And for a long time, nobody talked about them. We forgot them. We were ashamed of them because acknowledging their suffering meant acknowledging we were persecuted, and we wanted to be accepted, not seen as victims. But now I realize, remembering them isn't shame. It's honor. They suffered so we could live freely. They wore the pink triangle so we wouldn't have to. We owe them our memory." The young people listen, some with tears because they understand. Our freedom came at a cost paid by those who came before, those who suffered, those who died, those who were forgotten. Today, the pink triangle has become a symbol of pride, worn at pride marches, on flags, on t-shirts, not as a mark of shame, but as a symbol of resistance. A reminder, we survived. They tried to destroy us, and we're still here. But there's also a responsibility that comes with this symbol, the responsibility to remember, not to forget those who wore it in the camps, not to forget those who died wearing this symbol, not to forget those who were forgotten. The world has changed since 1945. Homosexuality has been decriminalized in most Western countries. Gay marriage is legal in many places. LGBTQ+ rights have progressed enormously. But the fight isn't over. In many countries, being homosexual is still a crime, punished by prison or death. People still suffer for whom they love. And the story of the pink triangles reminds us, oppression can happen anywhere, even in civilized countries, even by liberators. Oppression isn't just Nazi, it's human. And the only way to fight it is to remember, to bear witness, to refuse silence. The gay prisoners couldn't believe their eyes when they first saw the American soldiers. Why? Because they thought it was liberation, the end of their suffering. But it wasn't. It was just the beginning of a new form of oppression. More subtle, but just as real. They were liberated from the camp, but sent to prison because their crime wasn't Nazi. It was universal, and for decades, nobody talked about them. They were forgotten, erased, silenced. Not by the Nazis, but by everyone, by the Allies, by historians, by society, because acknowledging their suffering meant acknowledging that homophobia wasn't just Nazi. It was everywhere. This is the lesson of the pink triangles. Oppression doesn't end with liberation if oppressive laws remain. Justice doesn't come automatically with victory if we refuse to give it. Memory isn't passive. It's a choice to remember everyone, not just some. Today we remember, we say their names, we acknowledge their suffering, and we promise, never again will we forget, never again will we stay silent, never again will we let oppression be acceptable, because freedom isn't divisible. Either we're all free or none of us are. Please subscribe to our channel for more true stories from history, stories the world forgot, stories that need to be told. Hit that like button if this story touched your heart. Turn on the notification bell so you never miss our powerful documentaries. Because remembering isn't just about honoring the past, it's about protecting the future. Drop a comment and let us know what part of this story impacted you most. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next story.